Happy Friday, everyone. JT here. Welcome to the huddle. For those joining us for the first time, let me first start off by saying thank you for choosing to invest your time and energy into being here with me and my special guest today. The huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. And the reason is it's so that they can share their journey to greatness. And the intention here is so that you can learn, because success always leaves clues. Happy Friday, as I said, everyone. I am really enthused to chat with my guest today. I've known him as before we were coming on. I realized how long we've actually known each other. And I'm just really, just grateful for him for taking time out of his busy day to come with us into the huddle today. My guest on the huddle today is Andy Rady. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, great. You know what? It's Friday. Not that Friday's any different, but every day is an opportunity to do something great. So really, really grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. So, Andy, as I was sharing with you before we started, the huddle is all about just really getting into the mindset behind what successful people do, right? And success in all areas of life, personally, professionally, and in all areas. So what I would love to do first is, just kind of get to know, let people get to know you. What is one thing that many people don't know about you that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, that's a good question. See, that's what people say is that's a good question, which is me just trying to buy time to think about that. So what's one thing that people don't know about me that I'm comfortable sharing? Well, the mind instantly goes to hobbies. Most people don't know that one of my favorite hobbies is fishing, and that's one of my favorite pastimes. I find it's a very relaxing break from the hustle and bustle and stress of a legal career.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the most interesting answer, but that's my answer.
Hey, you know what? You felt inspired to share it, so that's always good. Great reminder to have those times in our day to find, those relaxing, those calming habits.
Well, and speaking of which, it's Friday, so I'm instantly now getting into the weekend mindset, thinking, which lake or river am I going to go stand in on Sunday?
Okay, I love it. So for those who don't know, again, the community, there are some commonalities between us. So, we've obviously crossed paths around many of the similar people. A lot of the same people that have impacted my life have impacted your life as well. For those who don't know, Andy came and started, how we first met was I coached Andy back in the day in high school when he was a very talented and driven tight end and defensive end for us in junior football at London Central Secondary School. And then, I had the opportunity to watch him go on to have an amazing career at the University of Western Ontario. Sorry, folks, it's not Western University. I'm old school. It's still the University of Western Ontario.
Likewise, UWO all the way.
And I've been able to watch Andy sort of carve out this amazing life for himself, seeing success, becoming a partner at Harrison Pensa. So what I would love to know, Andy, is what role has sport played for you in your life? And what is a lesson or lessons that really have stuck with you on your journey?
Yeah, so sport has been central to my life and it continues to be central to my life. I think fundamentally the structure, so whether it was in elementary school, when I first got involved with football in grade 8, which was with the London Minor Football Association, high school with you and many other coaches and the wonderful John Vuvalides as my senior football coach, or at Western with Larry Haler and Greg Marshall. It's that structure that sport provided to me to predominantly manage my time. sport is a major commitment, but it's also a huge outlet for many different things, for energy, pent up energy. You go and play sports. I found that it then allowed me in my academics to focus better, to time manage better, particularly in university, because playing Western football was a full-time job. And so then managing that with undergrad and then eventually law school, you had to be very careful about your time management. That now translates to my current career, where time management is absolutely key in managing deadlines, because it's a high volume, busy practice that I do as a lawyer. So I would not be here today if I didn't play the sports that I played. And I didn't just play football. In high school, I also did track, throwing, and basketball. I wasn't very good at basketball, but I enjoyed it. And again, just having those physical outlets for some of that pent up anxiety, aggression, etc. And also the team camaraderie. Most of the sports, save and except for track and field, team sports are, in my mind, essential. I work in a multi-person 55 lawyer law firm right now, and I see us as being one big team. And that mentality comes from playing team sports, because you know you're only as strong as your weakest player, to use the age-old cliche that we always hear. But if you go in with that mentality, you want to make everybody around you rise up, and uplift everybody around you. So having that team sport mentality allows you to get along with others, to be accountable to others. That's been a big motivating feature for me, is just, I want to perform because I want to perform well for my team and hold my own weight for my team, whether it's on the sports field or in my professional career.
It's great to hear you go towards the team aspect. And one of the first questions that always seem to get asked whenever a reference comes out, right, for a past student or athlete, or maybe it's just someone that's maybe asked for a reference, is around this idea of team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone that has ever been on a powerful team or a great team knows that being a great teammate, truly wanting to lift others up, is a skill that goes beyond, like you said, the football field. It goes on beyond the basketball court or the ice. So what I would love to know from you is, in a busy firm, right, law firm, like you are dealing in a very, high stress, high demanding environment, how important is it for people to be a great team player?
I think everybody might have a different or differing philosophy. My philosophy is, I think it's extremely important, because especially not especially, but in a law firm setting, you have a lot of A-type personalities, a lot of people who are used to making the decisions, used to calling the shots, because that's our job. That's what we get paid to do. Our clients pay us for our advice and recommendations. When it comes to working together, we all may think we are right at a given time, or we might agree on some things and not others. But what we need to do as a team is realize everybody's motivated differently. But fundamentally, if we work together as a team, put aside and try to find some common ground, which we do, and we do it quite well at my current firm, or at Harrison Pensa, at the firm I'm at. We work together in a team-based atmosphere. So yeah, while we might disagree, we ultimately respect each other's opinion and differing viewpoints, and want to hear each other out. Even if we want to voice disagreement, that's welcome. So I think on a team, or even in a law firm setting, it translates very well, because on a team, you're always going to have the leaders who are trying to guide things, but not everybody always agrees with the leader. And if you have an open conversation so we can understand why decisions are made, and you're never going to please everybody 100%, but as long as people feel heard and understood, I think that's important. I don't know if I may have gotten off track there with answering the question, but no, I think it's very important in a law firm setting to have a team-based mentality, because we have to work together for the the business.
A couple of things came up as you talked about that providing that space where people feel seen and heard. That is so key, right? Where people actually feel valued, and staying sort of loyal to the vision, right? The goal, right? The end goal. Is that something that you've always done naturally? Is that something you've learned growing up? Is that something you learned in sport? Like how did you come to understand the importance of that?
I do think it is through sport. So much of my upbringing and through high school and university has been around sport. And even post-university, there was a lull period there where I wasn't playing any sports, and I started to get down, and then I started playing soccer, and I never played soccer before, but play team soccer in the London community because I need that team sport atmosphere. So is it something that is shaped, that mentality of needing to collaborate, hear each other out? That is something that has been shaped, I think, just over the course of my experiences in my life. I'm trying to think if there's any other feature of that, and perhaps it's because I'm the youngest of three. I have two older sisters, so there's also a bit of collaboration that had to come in from a very early age of being the youngest, and they would override the decision, so got to hear them out, and they had to hear me out. Maybe that has a factor into it, but I think predominantly it's the sporting experience. I've always sort of played team sports since a very young age. I played baseball starting might have been grade 4. I started playing competitive baseball, but until grade 8. Again, team based atmosphere.
And it's one thing, again, I've known you for many years, but what I'm really grabbing from this conversation is how integral, how important team is to you. I think back to your peer group. Like your peer group of friends, some of your closest friends are guys that you grew up with, right? In high school. I think back to, I was actually looking at some older pictures from your time at Western, and I looked at the pictures of you and the guys you started with on the old line. And I was going like, they are similar, like just great football players, but even greater men and great human beings. Right. I had on, as I was mentioning to you before, Coach Falls was on a couple of weeks. So it's always like you've chosen to surround yourself with other ambitious, driven, open-minded people, quote unquote alphas. Is that something that's been conscious for you, or is that just something you've kind of gravitated towards?
It has not been conscious. It's not like something where I sat back and reflected and said, here's my choice of what I want to do. It was more or less the product of the choices that I have made. Because I naturally originally I gravitated towards football because I was in grade 8. Lots of friends were playing hockey. I thought maybe I'll play hockey. Didn't necessarily work out because I've been playing baseball and I wasn't the best baseball player. It was kind of slow and I had this sort of pent up aggression. And so from a fundamental, when you're in grade 8, so what does that put me at 13 years old? I'm thinking, I need to hit. I just need to, have an outlet for that. And so that's when I just found football, and I wanted to play. I didn't know if I'd like it. And it was an amazing experience. I love football. So that's a choice I made. The motivation to make that choice back then was not so much about to surround myself by anything. It was just to go out and try to play a contact sport because I wanted to play contact sports. Chose football, and from that, through just sticking with it because I enjoyed it, that I think naturally, I think there's a lot of A-types and good people that go through sporting programs, whether it's football or hockey or baseball or volleyball, whatever sport. It teaches a certain skill set to people that I think can be very beneficial in how people view the world and their self in relation to others.
Yeah. It's funny. Again, it comes back to that idea that being a great teammate and being able to work well with others or play well with others. I would always joke around when I get these student teachers, hey, you got to be willing to be a team player. You got to play well with others. because that's going to set you up to be successful in any area of life.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you mentioned, your list of people that have coached and mentored you along the way, right? And again, I've had the pleasure of working with, coaching against some of those people, right? Like, you talked about Coach Vuvalitis, Coach Haler, Coach Marshall, right? Coach Dobachevsky, Coach McKay.
Yes.
I'm curious, what role has coaching and mentorship played in your life, and how has that helped you as you have transitioned to being a leader at your law firm?
So is your question about me in a coaching capacity, or me in terms of deriving mentorship value from coaches?
Yeah, just, you've been around some great leaders, right? You've been able to be mentored about them. What is a lesson you've learned from them?
Well, I think at an early stage, going into grade 9, playing on the junior football team, it was Andy Dobachevsky was my head coach, and Todd McKay, both Western football players. And what I derived from them, because they were young, fairly fresh out of teachers college, inspiration was from them, looking up at them and saying, look at these guys, look at, the attitude they bring, the positivity that they bring, you too, obviously, Justin, but just that positivity, that was inspiration for me to say, okay, that's what I want to be like. I want to be that kind of person. Positive, looking out for others, communicating well, caring about something very much. And then that moved on to senior football, which was with John Vuvalitis. And again, I've never met a person with a bigger heart than John Vuvalitis. He is fundamentally a terrific human being. And from him, he always said, sometimes the student or person needs the sport more than the sport needs the student or the player. And that resonated with me as well from a leadership standpoint, because not everybody is going to be Cristiano Ronaldo. Not everybody is going to be a superstar. But and that's what I love about football, is you bring these players on who there's a spot for everybody on the team, and people who might not necessarily be naturally gifted athletes, they work hard. And if they get inspired by others, they can succeed as well. And so that sort of mentality of inclusiveness that John Vuvalitis brought, that was inspirational for me. Moving on to Western, my time was kind of split. So I had Larry Haler for a short period, and because he was transitioning out at that point, and then Greg Marshall came in. And what I learned from Greg was work ethic, accountability. Now, I think any of my colleagues who played football under Coach Marshall can say that when we wouldn't play well in a game, game film was on the Sunday after a game. Let's say we had a poor game. Game film was unpleasant. You're very much held accountable for your errors and mistakes, all in an effort to make you better, and it can break you down a little bit. But what I learned from that was, don't hide from your mistakes. Own up to them. So if we were sitting in game film and you sit at the back of the room and he can't find you and he's watching you on screen and critiquing your playability or non-playability in a particular play, if you're hiding in the back, you're not going to get much from it, and he might get upset with that. So I just took it upon myself to start sitting next to him, and so that if he was being critical, then he'd have to look at me and tell me, and I could share back what I thought, which was usually, yep, I messed up that block and I feel horrible about it. But that accountability from him and that drive and that work ethic about what it takes to be a winner, that's what I got from Coach Marshall. So all of these things, these different coaches that I had, all bring sort of different perspectives, all of which have inspired me in a different way. So that now in my career, I feel that in my role, so I'm a personal injury lawyer at Harrison Pensa. I'm a partner, and I'm the head of I'm the practice group leader for our personal injury department. we have younger associates in the department. And I find that the mentality I have is inclusivity. Bring, like, if they have questions, there's no stupid questions. They're learning. It's called the practice of law for a reason, just like you practice football and you practice at sports because you're trying to get better. And as I think Todd McKay would say, and I think he was quoting Larry Haler, was there's a phrase, practice makes perfect. But Larry and then Todd at Central would always say, no, perfect practice makes perfect. And so what does that mean? Ultimately, you want to strive for perfection, but you're never going to be perfect. But you want to strive for perfection. And in so doing, you have to ask the questions you're not sure about. So I take a mentality here in the firm, as inspired by the coaching I've had in the past, that the people who are up and coming, the younger lawyers here, come and ask questions. I don't ever, like, my door is always open. I'm always happy to chat, always happy to assume a mentorship role. I welcome that. And I've seen the ease at which those coaches in the past have taught me and taught football skills and also life skills. And I want to pass that along from my own experiences to the others at my firm as well, as best as I can, you know.
And what I'm really hearing from you is this idea of like paying it forward, right?
Yeah.
That you are simply taking the lessons that people pass down to you. Now that you're a little bit higher up on the ladder, you're looking down and you're trying to pass down those lessons to help raise other people up so they can get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, definitely. And, you know, there's some lessons I can't pass down because they're through experience, but there's just I guess it's my mentality and my outlook on what my role is, or what I want my role to be, I should say, which is to be a person that people can feel comfortable coming to speak to if they have questions or want some guidance on a file, helping others when they're down. You know, it's again, team-based mentality. So if there's something that needs some heavy lifting, I'm happy to chip in and roll up the sleeves. It's also O-line mentality, I suppose.
Yeah, willing to pull up
the
the
heavy
sleeves.
lifting.
Yeah. So one thing that came up, a question here came up, Andy, was you were talking about creating this inclusive environment where people feel that they can ask questions, like there are no those stupid questions. One challenge I've found is that many people, for variety of reasons, don't always feel comfortable asking questions, right? Like they feel like it's a little bit like putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
And that can keep us stuck. And I know that not just from the nature of the work I do, but I also know that the times in my life where I was unwilling to ask the question or ask for help, that can get you stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, what is something that you do to build those inclusive environments so that people feel comfortable coming to you as a leader to realize like, Andy's not going to judge me. He just wants to help me.
Honestly, I think the only way I can do it, and perhaps it's the wrong approach, but it's my approach, is just through repeating the message. Come to me if you have questions, because it does take, and I do realize this even from team sports, it takes two to tango. So I will offer up to be open and to chat in an open and a non-judgmental environment. But I realize that it takes others to come forward, and I will reach out to them and say, hey, feel free to come forward. And the hope is that once they get the foot in the door and once they contact me, and it's not like it's a regular thing. It's just a mentality I bring with my partners, but more so the younger associates, that once they make that initial question, that then they will realize, okay, he wasn't, selling me a bag of goods when he said that there would be no judgment or that there are no stupid questions. It's only through experience and hoping that they reach out, but I feel like I can only do so much, right? Like there's not, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is a methodology that I'm unaware of to try to make people more comfortable, but that's sort of the limit of it for me, is offer it up, repeat the message, go reach out to them, and then hopefully they reach out back.
It's great. No, that is a perfect idea, Andy. I love it. It's just that repetition, right? It's that, hey, you know what? The truth of the matter is not everyone's going to take you up on your offer, seek out help the first time you ask it. But when it comes through, repetition, that consistency builds that trust, right? It gets people to understand that you are just trying to provide value to them and helping them get to where they want to go. So that repetition is something I've learned is so foundational. I'll just share with you quickly. One of the questions that I always like to ask people is, how can I help or be of service to you? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because most of the time people say, no, I'm good. Yeah, and that's okay. And I've had to learn how to kind of say, okay, they don't feel, whatever reason, they don't want help right now. That's okay. But I've noticed just having that consistency builds that trust to meet, like you said, meet them halfway, so that when they do, they know they can come to you for an answer or some insight, right?
Yeah. And I've been asked that question that you've asked, and I've asked that question before. And it's, when I get asked that question, a lot of the time it's like, I don't know. No, I'm okay right now. Yeah. But then it's there. And then I know, and then when you take time, and it could be a month down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that you're reflecting on it and saying, okay, now I'm at a point where actually, maybe I could use that help, and maybe I will reach out. There. Yeah.
I love it. Hey, great minds think alike, right?
That's right.
So I'm really curious. You are, like you said, in a very results oriented, very driven business, right? Like an industry that, results speak. But you're also someone who's very passionate about being a family man.
Yes.
How has that transition been? Is that kind of something that you're constantly working at? Is that something that, how do you balance everything?
I think part of it, is it easy? No. Is it hard? No. Somewhere in between. A lot of the time you have to take it one day at a time. I don't have some outward plan about this is what I'm going to do, or this. A lot of it is I have to be flexible and adaptable. I am fortunate in my career choice where I do have that level of flexibility to work, for the most part, when I need to work, and so I can, my schedule is flexible. There are time demands and significant time demands and workload demands that have to get done. It's just a matter of when it gets done. It's not like it's a 9-to-5 job. So it means if I have to come in on a Sunday, I'll come in on Sunday. And if that means so I can take a Wednesday afternoon off to spend it with my kids, that's fine. There's a balance there. Where does that ultimately come from, that managing of time? Again, it goes back to my history of playing sports. It's always been a time management exercise since as long as I can remember, because sports have always been a major commitment of time. Family, would I love to be able to spend more time with my family? Absolutely. I think anybody who is a family person fundamentally would love to be able to spend more time with their family. But at the same time, I have a career, I have clients that rely on me, and that work needs to get done and pushed forward. So it's finding it, from a week to week, month to month basis, the balance is always different. It depends if I'm in trial. If I'm in trial, I probably won't be seeing my family very much, because trials are extremely time consuming for a discrete period of time. And then after that, I can see my family and make up the time. If it's on a day-to-day basis, like during coronavirus, where the courts have been sort of slow and we haven't been having trials, it's a day-to-day balance. I have a newborn and 2 daughters, 7 and 5. So obviously want to be spending a ton of time with them. And it's also just managing that the time I spend with them is quality time, as best as it can be. So if I've had a busy day and I get home, can't do so much with the newborn other than hold him, which is good enough because he's smiling now. But with my daughters, taking them outside the other day, took them to a local school, and they wanted to start practicing t-ball. So we got a bat, a tee, and just we're teeing it up and teaching them how to do that. I very much look, it's sports again. I very much engage with my kids through sports. That's a lot of the quality time I spend with my girls is doing sports, whether it's soccer, baseball, volleyball, throwing the football. My 7-year-old actually has a pretty good arm, which makes me happy. It's her dad. Yeah. 5-year-old's getting there. So yeah, it's you balance it, but you also got to make time for the quality time.
As you were sharing, the vision that came to mind was how sport has sort of played that, like you were describing that, when I'm in trial, it's kind of like the postseason, right? It's playoff time. It's I'm all in, right? There are other times in where I'm not in trial, and it's kind of like the off season where it's kind of like that time after the season where you have a lot more freedom and you kind of go there. So it's like very a delicate dance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you're in the off season, that's when you're doing the training and you're lifting and you're trying to get faster and stronger. That's where it's very much like that. So trial is very much like game day or it's more like postseason because you're just playing a stream of games. Only it's in a 2 to 3 to 5 week period.
Okay. So you were mentioning that obviously it's an ebbs and flows, right? Mm-hmm. And it come to accept it is almost like that idea. You strive for perfection, but you understand that it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's kind of like a play. Sometimes the play works, sometimes it doesn't. You go back to the drawing board, you draw it up on the board, you try something else, right? You just
absolutely. Well, as my offensive line coach, when I went into Western, Bill Emery said, you want to be at least making your block at least 80% of the time, but he understood, being a former offensive lineman, we are going to get beat. It happens. I remember playing Queens this one time, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he had an unbelievable swim move. He had a 1-2 movement and then swim over top. And I was playing right guard at the time, and he beat me with that move like 2 or 3 times in the game. And I think he sacked Falsies twice, and I felt like a chump because I got beaten. I don't like getting beat, especially on a depth protection. Anyway, so then went back to the drawing board, watched the game film, saw, okay, what's his timing? So when we played Queens again, I got him. He beat me once, but I was able to get him. But it's you get beat and you feel like crap, but at the same time, you can't beat yourself up about it too much. That's why I like football. Next play mentality. I got beat. Next play, I'm going to get up. I'm going to hit the guy again. And I'm not going to get beat again, even if I get beat again.
Folks, if you're watching this, I really want you to hear what Andy just shared with you. And this is something that successful people do. He referred to this next play mentality. And this is where, as a former high-level athlete, it's so important. You have to have this short memory. And even if you're not an athlete, I'll give you this analogy. Picture yourself driving in a car. Think of the size of your front windshield versus the rear view mirror. You must spend more time focusing on this play, right? The play you're currently in, right? And focusing your energy there. Because if you're looking in the rear view mirror and you're always spending all of your time looking back, oh my gosh, I got beat on that play. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. And judging yourself, you're going to eventually get into a crash. So you got to focus on, like Andy said, like this play, right? Next play, focus on this play, best energy, best attitude, and everything has a way of working itself out.
Execute the assignment. It's if you beat yourself up, you're going to psych yourself out and you're going to fail. There's a time for reflection and there's a time to look back, but when you're in the moment, in the game, etc., that's not the time for self-reflection and for beating yourself up about a bad play. You can watch game film afterwards, and even then, not for long. Watch it, realize what you did, move on.
Next play mentality. I love it.
Next play mentality, and it happens in law too. It's you just like trying to win a football game. When I'm trying to win a case, you want to do your best. You want to get the best result for your client. You want to use the best tactic whatsoever. You want to make sure that you've covered all your bases on the legal arguments, etc. Now, the thing with law and like sports is I have a lot of time to consider my move, and it's more like chess, only chess without a timer. So I have plenty of time. It's not like football where I'm in the moment. We're running power, and I'm either going to hit the linebacker or I'm not going to hit the linebacker, and maybe I have a split second decision to say, okay, I'm going to cut block him on this play. That's about all the time you have. It's more instinctive reaction through muscle memory and having drilled it so many times in practice. I swear, Justin, I could go out on the football field right now, and if somebody said run 44 power, I would know the exact footwork. It feels like it's so ingrained in my legs. Over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There it is.
Hey, that's just a sign of great coaching, going all the way back to your high school days.
Yep. Yep. When Dobo was teaching me the reach block.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious, Andy, you know, we're in an interesting time where, depending on when people are watching this, this has been a unique time in human history. You know, people are, you know, things are turning out, depending, again, when you're watching this, things are starting to open back up. But, you know, there are a lot of people struggling, you know, maybe with their health, maybe it's a relationship breakdown, maybe it's with their finances, maybe they've lost their job. Maybe just life has really knocked them down, you know, a lot over the last, just over the year. What is one piece of advice that you could share with them to just help them get back on their feet, to just create one positive play so they can get momentum back on their side?
That's tough, because I think everybody during Rona everybody's experience is slightly different, and you know, there's a commonality across the board of humans. I think are inherently social beings. I don't think that. I know that we are very social. And I think the absence of social interaction, and even over Zoom, it's not the same as being able to sit in person. I think that has taken its toll, and even on me, like I miss sports. I miss playing soccer, because I played indoor soccer, and then that season got canceled halfway through, and outdoor, who knows. So you miss that team sport environment. You miss the social aspect, even in general. So what's the advice for people to sort of get through it? That's a tough one, Joe. Like, because I don't know if I can provide, like, what's gotten me through it is my own, like my family, and really just taking it one play, one step at a time. And maybe it does go back to the next play mentality is, yeah, it's been pretty crappy, and it's been crappy for a lot of people, some more so than others. And to say, have that next play mentality that it's going to get better, it is easier said than done. I would like to believe that, and I think we are on the right side of things. I think we're moving, you know, with our vaccinations that are happening across the board. But again, I think we can't dwell on the past. I think we can't dwell on the last year and a half where we've been deprived of certain experiences that we would have liked to have. Because if we do that, you can't change it. That's the thing. If I missed a block, I can't change it. I can't, no matter what I can do, the past is the past. The Titanic, no matter what, is going to sink. And even when you watch the movie Titanic and you think maybe it won't sink this time, it's always going to sink. So move forward, learn from the past, but be optimistic and look forward to the future. And I think things will get better and are getting better. That's all I can really offer.
No, and I love that simplicity of that advice. And it really goes back to the ideas that you've done, that you've applied to your life, whether as an athlete, whether it is in your personal life and your professional life, is that focus on the current play, right? Is that it doesn't matter what's happened up to this point. And again, it's understanding that, yes, it's not to minimize what people have been going through, but it's understanding that if you keep your eyes on the road ahead, things will get better. And the power of reframing.
Yeah. And not becoming stagnant, not being caught in place. If you constantly look forward and you have hope and you try your best to maintain an optimistic outlook on things, even when it's tough, even when you want to be pessimistic, or skeptical, or negative, if you tell yourself, I want to be optimistic, I want to look on the bright side of things, to quote Monty Python, hopefully that, you know, can shape your outlook, because I think we can to some degree choose how we want to view things, and as best as we can, if we can make that decision and tell ourselves, you know, weather the storm, look forward, it's going to get better. I think that's the way through it.
I love it. So, Andy, how can people get connected to you? Maybe some of your former classmates, teammates are seeing this and go, you know what, I haven't talked with Andy in a while. What is the best way people can get connected with you?
I am to some degree on social media, but I'm not by any means active on social media. I think I have the same Facebook background as I did long time ago, which I believe is Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters, because I find that picture funny. I'm on Instagram as well. People can find me. Probably the best way to reach me is through work. My email, which is on our website, but it's arady@harrisonpensa.com. I'm effectively, it's a difficult part of the job is to suspend yourself from your emails. So I'm usually very much connected to my emails.
I'll be sharing all that in the description, and I'm sure lots of people are going to be wanting to catch up, or, you know, even people that just want to learn just that next play mentality. So, Andy, first and foremost, I want to take a moment just to acknowledge you for who you are. Not only the man you are, right? I've had the great pleasure of working with you, and it's been amazing to see you grow and evolve along your journey. I want to acknowledge you for the husband you are, the dad you are, but most importantly, the great human being you are. You've always had this calm and confidence about you, Andy, about staying loyal to the vision. Like the things that you talked about accomplishing in your life, achieving, I still remember that same young man as a grade 10 talking about wanting to do these things. So it's really cool to see them manifesting and seeing you continue along your own journey of greatness. So I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So folks, again, Andy shared so many nuggets of wisdom there. And I'll leave you with this idea. Take one idea that Andy shared with you today and apply it to your life. And what I really want to highlight in these conversations with the huddle is what makes people successful isn't necessarily what they do, although that is part of it, but it's how they think, right? And success really in any area of your life is 95% mindset. So really focus on taking from these high performers how they think, and greatness will be the byproduct. Have an amazing rest of your Friday, everyone. And we will chat next week in the huddle.
Thanks, Justin.